So wind forward to today. You set up something called the Adam Smith Institute, and you've mentioned him a couple of times. Let's talk about your most recent book, Schools of Economic, an introduction to Schools of Economic Thought. But maybe kick off with why Adam Smith? Why did you set up an institute that was named after him? Who was he, for people who don't know, who are new to economics and kind of they've heard this. I mean, I was talking to Matt on the train on the way up and goes, I think I've heard of him, but only through you. But I know it's an important name. So what's his relevance today?
Well, when we set up the institute, we called it something else. We called it the Chatham Institute. We thought we'd have something nice and bland. And then everybody said, well, what's that all about? So we thought, right, well, if we call it Adam Smith Institute, at least people have some vague idea mostly about what Adam Smith is all about. He's about free markets and all of these good things, and trade and competition. So we were in favour of free markets and trade and competition and lower taxes and less government and all these good things too. And so it was a natural choice. And it also had the amazing benefit that if your name begins with A, you end up at the top of every alphabetical list. So when we would, give evidence to the House of Commons, for example, our name was at the top of the list. Yeah. So that was quite fun. But it wasn't, as a name, it wasn't our first choice. But I'm very glad that we settled on that.
And he, obviously he came from nothing. Economics, as a discipline, actually, let me ask another way. Was Adam Smith an economist, or was he a philosopher? Or was he both?
He was actually, I would describe him as a social psychologist.
Okay.
He started off looking at moral philosophy. And he was trying to work out how the human mind works and how society shapes that mind. And in moral philosophy, for example, he says, we behave in certain ways because we we are creatures who are built to like the appreciation of others, and we don't like offending others, and therefore we behave in certain ways. We put pressure on people if they don't behave like that, and so on. And he couldn't understand it because he didn't have the theory of evolution, but he said, Providence has made us like that. That's what it is. And then, of course, he moved on to economics. But he also was interested he wrote on art and literature, taught on art and literature, and on jurisprudence, governance. So, he regarded these as all different parts of the human social psychology. So I think that's really where he stands.
Interesting. And so take us through a kind of high-level summary. Don't give too much away because we want people to read the book, but kind of what are the various schools of economic thought that people should know about, and what's the kind of history of economics, let's say, as a whistle-stop tour, and I'll kind of butt in with that where possible.
Well, I'm just reminding myself by looking at the contents page, but I start with pre-classical economics, ancient views of economics, where again, people were trying to work out what the value of things was. This is something that runs through economics. What's the value of something? And the classical school, Adam Smith and Malthus and others, they took up that theme, and there was it had been through the ancient, Romans had the same problem, and the Greeks had the same problem. What is it that makes something valuable? Why is that glass of water valuable? Why is this piece of paper not valuable? And they thought it was some property in the thing itself. So there are lots of debates about that. Adam Smith was interesting. He was a pioneer in economics because I keep saying he wasn't the first economist by any means, but what he was very good at, rather like Ludwig von Mises, is to take lots of ideas that are floating around, and lots of people say, oh, so-and-so anticipated Adam Smith, he wasn't original. Yeah. What he did was to take all these ideas and weave them into a coherent structure, which we now know as modern economics. And that was his genius.
Which is what creativity is. There's no one creates something out of pure ether. You've got to spot the relevance and connections between various disciplines and what's happening in the world to kind of create, rather than...
True, there's a lot of grunt work as well, of course. Yeah, that's right. And, Smith, if you would read The Wealth of Nations, well, don't read The Wealth of Nations. What you should do is to read my summary of it, which is a tenth of the length.
I did try to read The Wealth of Nations probably about 10 years ago now, 7 years ago, and I didn't make it very far.
No.
Not, but I still feel like I should try, because it's so seminal, but it's so weighty, and the language is so...
It's called The Condensed Wealth of Nations.
Okay. And how did you go about doing something like that? Kind of condensing?